To řešení, které bude nyní představeno, tak je řešení Point Software a tato firma se specializuje na vývoj a distribuci softwarových produktů pro ukládání, správu a dlouhodobou archivaci dat pomocí všech dostupných technologií velkokapacitních paměťových zařízení, jako jsou pevné disky, magnetické pásky, optická média a cloudová úložiště. Point Software nabízí řešení S3 Tape, kdy je objektové úložiště postaveno na technologii LTO a data se pomocí eraser coding rozkládají na více LTO pásek. Nabízí také možnost replikace dat z objektové storage na S3 tape. Já myslím, že anotace slibuje velmi zajímavé technologické informace, tak už předám slovo Janu Kirscherovi. Welcome, Jan Kirscher. You hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
So now present your information.
Well, thank you and welcome to all. Thank you for inviting us to present Point Software and Systems for the first time in this format. And one of our technical experts, my colleague Michael Sears, will now give you a brief insight into our software solution and also present a live demo of this software. So I will let my colleague speak.
Okay, so hello, my name is Michael Sears from Point Software and Systems, and today I will give you an overview about our company and our product, Point Archival Gateway. So hopefully you can see my screen. So first of all, some words about our company and our heritage. So our roots go back to the time when we were part of a World Competence Center of Philips. As you may know, Philips and Sony has developed the CD media. And later on, as Philips went out of business, we were part of the European Project Organization of Digital Equipment. And in the year 1994, Point Software and Systems were founded. So we were then an independent company, and we are located in Germany, in Siegen. This is North Rhine-Westphalia, and we are an independent software vendor, and we are specialized in development of products regarding software storage and software management or data management. We also work closely together with our partners, technology partners. As you can see, we are certified by EMC, Fujitsu, IBM, and so on, NetApp and Veeam. So all of the major global players recognize us as a partner. And we have about more than 30 years of experience in storage solutions for data management. So let's talk about Point Archival Gateway. On this slide, you can see an overview about the architecture of Point Archival Gateway. In the red box, you can see the main components of Point Archival Gateway. And the main components are what we call nodes, and each node has a distinct function. So here we have the interface nodes and the database nodes. The interface nodes receive data from clients or software applications, and the interface nodes provide an S3 API interface to receive data. The interface nodes then receives the data and passes the data through the tape libraries. And the tape libraries, but to be more precise, the drives inside the tape libraries then write the data to tape. On the other hand, we have database nodes. They have the function to store all information about objects that have been received by Point Archival Gateway and that have been written to tape. Also, the database nodes provide an administration interface for management of the software. And as you can see, our solution is highly scalable, so you can add more interface nodes to be able to handle more tape drives, and you can also add more database nodes to handle more data security, because the database nodes actively synchronize each other. So in case one node goes down, the other can take over. We also provide erasure coding for the data that we store to tape. And we also support all major functions of the Amazon S3 API. This includes object versioning, tagging, and locking. And basically, we are compatible to the Amazon S3 interface. Here you can see an overview about the architecture of the storage solution. On the bottom of this slide, you can see the tape libraries. And in the tape libraries, there are a number of tape cartridges. The tape libraries we call archive storage devices, and a combination of one or more tape cartridges we call an archival storage volume. The number of the tape cartridges depends on the erasure coding that you have selected. So we can use erasure coding up to 1/4. So this means we can write data to up to 4 tape cartridges in parallel. And with an erasure code rate of 1/4, you have a redundancy of 3. So this means that 3 tape cartridges can go bad, and you can still be able, able to read the data back from the tape libraries. And this combination of tape cartridges we call a protected volume array. And above that, we have a storage partition, and the storage partition consists of one or more protected volume arrays. If one protected volume array is filled up with data, basically this means that the tape cartridges become full. Point archival gateway automatically allocates new tape cartridges and builds a new protected volume array. Above the storage partition, we have our object repositories. Basically, this is a different term for a bucket. And then the applications or users can upload the data or the objects to the buckets. Okay, so let me now switch to my demo system. So here you can see an overview about the administrative web interface of Point Archival Gateway, as this is what you see after logging into the software. And on the dashboard, you have an overview about the most important or informative information. So you have an overview about your managed data volume, about the number of objects that have been written to Point Archival Gateway, the number of buckets, and also the number of storage partitions. Below that, you can see the status of the nodes. So we have, in this case, 2 nodes that build a compact gateway cluster. And inside these boxes, you have shortcuts to log files and to statistics functions. And the green LED light indicates the status of the node. If the LED light is green, everything is okay. If it's red, then you have to take a look into the log file to see what the problem may be. Below that, you have information about the tape library status. So in our case, in my case, I have a quantum scalar tape library, and there are 2 drives inside this tape library. And you can also see that in the moment we have 2 tape cartridges loaded into each drive, and you have also here shortcuts to go to the details of the storage device of the tape library. You have a shortcut to go to the media list, and also you have a shortcut to the statistics functions of Point Archival Gateway. Above that, you have a menu where you can access configuration items. So what would you do to start working with Point Archival Gateway? you will start by creating a storage partition. So you go to storage management and click on storage partition. And there you have a button which you can click on, and this will then open a dialog box where you can enter the name of your storage partition. This is an identifier you can choose, and this can also be changed later on. And the next step, you will go to the storage partition that you have created. And this will show you this view. And here you have the possibility to select the erasure code rate of your storage partition. So this is a main configuration item. And you have also the possibility, if you have more than one tape library attached to the system, you can choose the tape library you want to use for this storage partition. Below that, we have some other configuration options. One important one is what we call a persistent buffer. With tape as a storage medium, you always want to have the drives in streaming mode. So this means you have to provide enough data so that the drives are able to store or to write the data to tape without interruption. In use cases where your applications or your users do not ingest a high number of objects per second, you can configure what we call a persistent buffer. And in this persistent buffer, our point archival gateway will collect the objects or the data until a specific trigger has been reached. And the trigger can be the maximum size of the data in the persistent buffer or the maximum age of the data in the persistent buffer. If one of these triggers are met, then the data will be written in one chunk to the tape drives. And this makes possible that also applications which only upload a couple of numbers of megabytes or a couple of objects to point archival gateway can store the data without introducing wear and tear on the tape and the tape drives. The next step after configuring a persistent buffer would be to configure object repository or a bucket, what we call. So in this case, you click on this create object repository item, and this will give you the possibility to enter a name for this bucket. So you click on OK. And now you have the overview of the properties of the bucket. And here you can set some options. For example, you can set a quota on the bucket. So if you want your users only have the possibility to upload a number of gigabyte data to the bucket, you can set an object quota. You can also set lifecycle rules. So this means what should happen if the data, for example, if some application creates a multipart upload and then does not finish the multipart upload, so you can enable the possibility that point archival gateway should automatically delete or close the multipart upload because the application has not done this. You can also set other lifecycle options that are known from Amazon S3. For example, what should happen if you have a number of versions, if these versions should be deleted after a specific number of days. This would be this option, for example. And yes, this is what you can set here with the lifecycle rules settings. If we go back to our bucket, you have the possibility to enable retention or not lifecycle policies, but S3 object log. So we provide two methods. We have our own retention management. So you can set the retention using this user interface, or you can choose S3 object log. And this means that the application that uploads data to the bucket has to set a retention period, but you can also, of course, set here a default retention period, which will be applied if the application does not provide any information about the retention period. You can also enable versioning and suspend versioning if necessary. You can also change the owner of the bucket. By default, the user that is logged into the administration interface becomes the owner of the bucket that he has created. But you can choose this option here to change the owner to a different user. And you can also add another users or groups and provide them specific permissions that makes them able to access the data in the bucket. Now let's have a look about on the device management. So here you can get an overview about your configured storage devices. So in my case, I have only one tape library here. If I click on it, I get information about the tape library and also about the drives that are in the tape library. And I can also list the media in the tape library, including information about the barcode, the media type, and the current status of the tape. So for example, formatted means that the medium is currently in use. Full means, yes, it is full, and the other state we have is available. So this means this is a freshly imported tape cartridge. And we also have a status obsolete. This means that this cartridge has been used before by Point Archival Gateway, but has been released because the archival storage partition has been deleted. And this can be then reused by Point Archival Gateway. We also support offline management. So you are able to export medias and tape cartridges from the tape library by clicking on this small export button. And then they will be listed in the offline section here, as you can see. And if you re-import the media, then Point Archival Gateway will recognize the tape cartridge on the barcode and assign them back to the storage partition that has been used for this media. We have also our integrated user management. So you can create users, and the users can get some roles. For example, you can create a group, and this group, for example, should be only be able to view security settings inside Point Archival Gateway. So this is an integrated role-based access management. So you can assign groups and add users to these groups, and then these users have only the defined rights to access specific function in Point Archival Gateway. But mainly, you have also the possibility to select and create users and give them S3 credentials or allow S3 access. And with this, you can then get the S3 access key and the secret key that is needed to access the bucket. Further on, we have some statistics functions here. So you can have a view about the number of objects that has been written per drive, but you have also information about the numbers of objects that have been written to the S3 API. Besides this, we also have system management functions. We have an information page which shows you the software version and the software activation key and the license options. We also provide email notification functions. So in case something goes wrong, you are able to send or to select users that then Point Archival Gateway will inform in case something goes wrong. We have also support for syslog servers. Then Point Archival Gateway will send the messages to the syslog server. And of course, the important one, to back up the database of Point Archival Gateway. So in case something goes wrong and both nodes go down, for example, you can simply set up new nodes, import the database, and then you are ready to go on. Okay, so this was a small overview about the administration interface of Point Archival Gateway. And now I will show you some use cases. And for this, I will open the administrative interface of another software that we are providing, and this is called Point Data Replicator. Point Data Replicator basically has two functions. It can replicate data from one bucket to another bucket, but it can also replicate data from a file system to a bucket. So with Point Archival, with Point Data Replicator, you have the possibility to transfer your file system to an S3 object store. And inside this S3 object store, as you will still have the file system hierarchy that you are familiar when you're using, for example, a file system explorer. And the second one, as I said, is the replication of an S3 bucket to Point Archival Gateway. And this is used, for example, to back up an existing object storage data to Point Archival Gateway. So let me open this task here by clicking on it. And here you can see the configuration you need to enter. So you have to enter the source bucket information. So this includes the endpoint address, access key, secret key, so the usual credentials. And also you have to provide the name of the source bucket. And optionally, you can set, for example, retry and timeout options in case you have a network that is not that stable. So Point Data Replicator will retry getting the objects from the source system more often. On the target page, you specify the data, the access data to the target bucket where you want to upload the data. So this, in my case, is Point Archival Gateway. And also here I have entered the credentials, secret key, access key, and my target bucket name. And we have an options page where you can specify which metadata should be copied together with this object. You can also enable that Point Data Replicator replicates object log information, for example, and user tags or access control lists. And you can also limit the scope of the replication to a specific time by specifying the date where the objects have been created and a final date when the objects have been created. So Point Data Replicator will only replicate these objects that have a creation timestamp between minimum and maximum volume, maximum timestamp. Further on, you can specify a schedule, and this defines when Point Data Replicator should execute the jobs. But we also support notification systems like Apache Kafka for specific storage systems, and we also support a generic Amazon SQS messaging service. So in this case, point data replicator does not need to enumerate all the source bucket or source buckets, but it waits for a notification that is sent to the, for example, Apache Kafka server, and then it polls this message queue and receives the information about the objects that have been newly created in the source system, and then it only replicates these objects to Point Archival Gateway. Further on, we have some statistics information about already copied objects and a view in the log file or the event log. And you can also open the log file for this task or even download the log file. So let me first start a job so we can see the progress. I will go to the statistics page and I will manually start the job. And this will replicate data from my source bucket, which is here. Or maybe I can show you what I have stored in my source bucket. So this is the source bucket here. This is the data I want to replicate. And the data should go to this bucket here, which is currently empty. So let me go back to my demo server here. And now I will execute the job. Oh, sorry, I have to switch this back to off and reload the configuration. So I will start the job now, and it says it's starting to copy, and you can see the numbers increasing here. And in the event log, you will see information that the job has started and that is finished without failures by indicating this with a blue icon. And it says this number of objects have been uploaded. If I now go back to my bucket view and refresh the bucket view here, you will see that now I have all the data replicated to my target bucket. So with this function, you can back up the objects on your production object storage system to Point Archival Gateway. But the question is, how do you get the big data back to your object storage system in case the data gets lost? So for this task, we have a shortcut where you can simply clone this job and execute source with target. And this will create a new task and simply exchange source with target. And with this, I can now simply click on this play button again. And in case data is missing on the source system, a point data replicator will replicate the data back from Point Archival Gateway to your object storage system. So let me just prepare this. So let's go back to my S3 browser. I will go back to my source storage system, which was somewhere here. And I will simulate data loss by, for example, deleting this objects here. So I click on delete. Now the objects are gone. Let's go back to Point Data Replicator. What I have to do first, before I can start the job, I have to update the database so that Point Data Replicator knows which objects are missing. So this starts an update job. And here you can see it has recognized that 318 objects are missing on my production system. So now I can trigger the job again. And now Point Archival Gateway will replicate only the missing files, the missing objects back to my production object storage. If I go back and take a look into my source bucket and refresh it, you can see that now my data is back again. So with this way, you can simply create two tasks. One task will back up your data to Point Archival Gateway. And in case you need the data back, you can simply clone this task and replicate the data back from Point Archival Gateway. And the other use case I mentioned before was replication of a file system to object storage. So basically, you set the source, the UNC path to your folder that you want to upload to an S3 object storage. And the target, yes, this is the usual information again, access endpoint and access key and secret key and so on. We have some options here again. Schedule notifications is not used in this case. The other tabs have the same functionality. So let's see what happens. I have prepared a network share here. Again, these are my files that I want to replicate to Point Archival Gateway. And my target bucket this time is named PDR archive. So let's go back to my test system. And this is PDR archive. Okay, this is from the last run, I think. Yeah, so let's delete this files. Okay, now they are gone. And now I will simply start the job. And this will replicate the data from file system to my target bucket. Okay, so let's take a look into my target bucket. And here are my data from my file system. Okay, so this was a quick overview about the functionality of Point Data Replicator and Point Archival Gateway. Thank you for your attention and have a nice day.